From protest to tragedy, the Minnesota shooting that shook a city. Before we dive in, make sure you hit that subscribe button and smash the like. You don't want to blink, because this story gets darker with every second. Comment below if you think you could survive the chaos that unfolded that night. You're about to see just how fragile a city can be. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going deep into a story that rocked Minneapolis to its core, a shooting that transformed protests into chaos, a single life lost that became a symbol of tension, anger, and fear. This is From Protest to Tragedy, the Minnesota shooting that shook a city. The night air was thick with smoke and tension, and the streets of Minneapolis had a palpable buzz, not of excitement, but of unease. The protests had started peacefully, with chants echoing across the bridges and city squares. People carried signs, their voices amplified by megaphones, calling for justice, calling for accountability, calling for an end to federal overreach. Yet beneath the chants and the banners was a simmering anger that had been growing for months, fueled by headlines, political rhetoric, and personal stories of pain. Alex Pretti was not supposed to be part of the headlines that night. He was a 28-year-old local, an artist, known for his street murals and quiet activism. But fate, as it often does, had a cruel timing. He had come to the protest simply to document it, to capture the energy and the voices of people demanding change. He had no plans to confront danger, yet within moments, he found himself in the eye of a storm that would forever alter the city's history. The first shots rang out around 9:42 p.m. Witnesses later described the scene as surreal, sparks of fear igniting in a place that only hours before had felt charged with hope. The crowd scattered as law enforcement moved in, their armored vehicles casting long, menacing shadows over the streets. Smoke bombs, tear gas canisters, and shouting melded into a cacophony that made it nearly impossible to discern friend from foe. And then, in the chaos, Alex fell. Detective Mia Torres, one of the first responders, later described the scene as controlled chaos on a knife's edge. She arrived at the crime scene to find Alex's body lying partially hidden behind a barricade, a pool of blood stark against the concrete. Around him, discarded signs, broken water bottles, and the remnants of what had once been a peaceful protest littered the streets. Her team began the painstaking process of cordoning off the area, collecting statements, and piecing together the timeline. A timeline that would grow more complicated and more dangerous with every passing hour. As cameras flashed and reporters jostled for position, social media lit up with videos, rumors, and speculations. The narrative spiraled almost immediately. Some blamed the protesters, some blamed law enforcement, and some whispered about unknown shooters taking advantage of the chaos. But no one had the full story yet. No one knew the real danger that had walked among them, hidden in plain sight. The investigation quickly revealed the first layer of tension. Alex's phone, recovered from beneath his body, contained videos of the protest from earlier that day, videos that seemed ordinary at first glance. But as detectives reviewed them, a chilling pattern emerged. There were figures moving against the flow of the crowd, individuals who seemed to be guiding violence, escalating confrontations with officers, and pushing protesters into areas where cover was minimal and danger high. Alex, documenting the scene, had unknowingly captured their movements, a trail of subtle provocations that, hours later, would explode into tragedy. Mia and her team followed every lead. They spoke to protest organizers, community leaders, and bystanders. Each account painted a slightly different picture. Some claimed to see uniformed agents acting with restraint. Others insisted they saw individuals dressed like civilians, armed, and strategically positioned to cause panic. Witness accounts conflicted, but a single thread ran through all of them: fear, confusion, and a sense that the city itself had become a trap. Meanwhile, in the city council chambers, tempers flared. Heated debates over federal intervention, policing methods, and protester rights filled the air. City leaders struggled to maintain calm while national attention intensified. The story had left Minneapolis, hitting headlines across the country. Analysts and commentators speculated endlessly: was this a targeted attack, a tragic accident, or something more sinister? And as the city tried to regain its footing, investigators knew that the clock was ticking. Mia focused on one particular clue, a set of fingerprints found on a discarded handgun near the barricade where Alex fell. The prints were smudged, partially obliterated, but traceable. They didn't belong to any local law enforcement officer, nor did they match any of the known protesters. It was as if a ghost had walked through the chaos, leaving a mark that might, just might, reveal the shooter. But the trail went cold almost immediately after that initial breakthrough. The suspect disappeared, leaving behind questions that would haunt the detectives for weeks. As dawn broke over the city, the first murals memorializing Alex began to appear, painted by friends, by strangers, by those desperate to make sense of the senseless. Each brushstroke screamed the same truth. One life lost can ignite a community, can expose systemic fractures, can challenge the very idea of safety. Yet, even as the city mourned, something deeper was stirring. Something hidden in the shadows of those crowded streets. Something that nobody had yet seen. Hours later, a seemingly ordinary lead would transform the case into a nightmare. A local journalist contacted Mia's team with a video file too large to send over email. It was grainy, shot from a distance, yet unmistakable in one crucial moment. A figure, wearing a hoodie and gloves, bent over a metallic case near the protest barricade just minutes before the shooting. The case was quickly lifted and carried away into an alley, a detail that had gone completely unnoticed amidst the chaos. Inside the case, Mia suspected, might lie the key to the shooting, whether it was the weapon itself or something even more sinister, meant to provoke, to terrorize, or to manipulate public perception. Mia watched the video over and over, frame by frame. Her heart pounded as the realization sank in. This wasn't random. It wasn't a moment of uncontrolled violence born of protest energy. Someone had planned it. Someone had anticipated the crowd, the movement, the chaos, and had positioned themselves to strike in a way that would ripple far beyond Minneapolis. And then, just as she was about to call her team, she noticed something that made her stomach drop. In the same frame as the case, a second figure appeared, just for a second, moving in a direction that defied the crowd flow. This person wasn't panicked, wasn't trying to escape the chaos. They were calm, calculated, watching. And then they vanished. Mia's hands trembled as she paused the video, rewinding it for the 5th time. Her gut screamed at her that this was bigger than a single shooting. Bigger than a protest gone wrong. Bigger than Minneapolis itself. And that's when the call came in from a patrol officer downtown. "Detective Torres, you need to see this. You're not going to believe it. But it's at the exact location where the shooter disappeared. And what we found, it changes everything." Mia grabbed her coat, her mind racing. The city was still breathing, still standing, but she knew the calm was a lie. Behind every corner, every shadow, every unassuming alleyway, danger was waiting. And she was about to step right into it. To be continued. If you thought this was intense, trust me, what next is going to make your jaw drop. Hit subscribe now so you don't miss what happens next. The real story is only just beginning. Before we dive in, smash that like button if you're ready to uncover the shocking truth. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the darkest secrets behind the story, and comment below, would you have survived that night in Minneapolis? Detective Mia Torres arrived at the alley that the patrol officer had called in about. The scene was eerily quiet, the streetlights casting long, fractured shadows across wet pavement. Broken glass from a nearby convenience store glinted in the dim light. No one in sight, not a soul, but the air carried that unmistakable tension, the kind that makes your skin crawl and your instincts scream danger is near. On the ground, partially hidden beneath a dumpster, was the metallic case from the protest. It had been carefully abandoned, almost like a breadcrumb left for someone to find, and now, it was in her hands. Mia's gloved fingers traced the edges, and she felt her pulse quicken. Whoever had left it behind wanted it discovered. But inside the case, she found something that made her stomach twist. A series of carefully labeled compartments, each containing small firearms, ammunition, and notes. But there was something else, a set of photographs showing Alex Pretti from earlier that day. Each image captured him documenting the protest, oblivious to the danger around him. Someone had been watching him, planning this, and leaving evidence for detectives like Mia to discover. Comment below if you've ever felt like someone was watching you, because Mia just found proof that Alex was being stalked. Hit subscribe now because the truth you're about to see is unbelievable. Mia's mind raced. This wasn't just a random act of violence. This was calculated. Someone had chosen their target, studied their movements, and orchestrated a deadly scenario. But the real shock came when she flipped through the final compartment, a folded piece of paper, marked with a symbol she didn't recognize. It was a list of names, protest leaders, community organizers, journalists, and at the top, Alex's name was underlined twice. Across town, tension was mounting. News of the shooting had sparked retaliatory actions, small fires, confrontations with law enforcement, and viral social media posts inciting unrest. City officials were scrambling, the National Guard had been deployed, and Minneapolis was teetering on the edge of chaos. Every minute Mia spent analyzing the case, the city was spinning further out of control. Mia's phone buzzed. It was Officer Daniels from downtown. "Detective, we just received another tip. Someone reported seeing a vehicle near the protest site with plates that don't exist in our system. Could be our suspect." Mia's blood ran cold. The pattern was clear. This wasn't just one person. Someone had a network, someone had resources, and someone wanted to make sure the message was sent loud and clear. If you're getting chills like I am, hit that like button right now, and share this story with someone who loves real crime mysteries. You don't want to miss what happens next. The team traced the vehicle's last known location to a rundown warehouse on the edge of the city. Inside, the place smelled of oil, dust, and something metallic, the unmistakable stench of weapons stored improperly. Empty cases littered the floor, but one corner was untouched. Mia's flashlight beam landed on a makeshift surveillance setup, monitors, cameras, and laptops showing live feeds from multiple parts of the city. Someone had been watching everything: the protests, the police movements, even the media trucks that covered the story. Mia realized with horror that the shooter, or the people behind the shooter, weren't just documenting Alex. They were documenting the city itself, ready to manipulate events, control perception, and incite fear on a massive scale. Drop a comment if you think you could survive being watched like this, and hit subscribe because the twisted plan behind this attack is far from over. As she examined the setup, Mia noticed a USB drive left carelessly on a desk. Plugging it into her laptop, she found encrypted messages outlining future targets, protest dates, and security blind spots. One line sent a shiver down her spine. Phase 2 begins when the city sleeps. The detective's mind raced. Phase 2? What had Alex stumbled into? How many more people were in danger? And why him? The city itself felt like a chessboard, and the pieces were moving in ways she had never encountered in her career. Outside the warehouse, a shadow shifted. Mia instinctively ducked, her gun drawn. A figure emerged, hood up, hands empty, moving slowly, deliberately. They were taunting her, daring her to make a move. But before she could react, the figure bolted into the night. Mia chased, but the suspect disappeared, melting into the darkness of Minneapolis like a ghost. Back at headquarters, the team pieced together the timeline. Every decision, every move by the shooter had been calculated. Alex's death wasn't just an accident, it was a warning. And the city had barely seen the beginning. If your heart is racing right now, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and comment below what you think Phase 2 could be. The answers are darker than you imagine. By the end of the night, news outlets had published their latest headlines: Minnesota protester killed, chaos erupts. But Mia knew the real story was far more complex. Someone wanted fear to spread, wanted mistrust to grow, wanted the city to feel helpless. And if they weren't stopped, the next tragedy would be far worse than Alex's death. As she stared at the surveillance footage one last time, Mia noticed something chilling. A figure in the background, watching the monitors, calm, calculated, confident that no one could stop them. And then the figure turned, looked directly at the camera, and smiled. The detective's phone buzzed again. It was another call, this time from someone claiming to have information about the mastermind behind the shooting. Mia's hand tightened around the phone. She knew this could be a trap. But she also knew she had no choice. Before we dive into the final, jaw-dropping chapter, hit that subscribe button and like this video if you've been following this case closely. Comment below, who do you think is behind Phase 2? You won't believe what happens next. The city of Minneapolis was tense in ways it hadn't been before. The protests had simmered, but the threat loomed, invisible yet palpable, like a storm about to break. Detective Mia Torres had spent every waking hour tracing the network behind Alex Pretti's death. Surveillance, witness accounts, leaked videos, everything pointed to someone orchestrating terror on a scale she had never seen. Her gut told her the mastermind wasn't just a local agitator. This was someone with resources, planning, and an understanding of chaos that went beyond anything she'd encountered. And then came the call that changed everything. A tip about a safe house in an abandoned factory on the outskirts of the city. Comment below if you think Mia will make it inside safely, and hit subscribe now, because this is where the truth finally comes out. The factory was a relic of Minneapolis' industrial past: brick walls, rusted metal beams, and broken windows that rattled in the cold January wind. Mia approached cautiously, her flashlight piercing the darkness. Every step echoed like a heartbeat, every shadow a potential threat. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the scent of chemicals. Tables were covered with maps, laptops, and photographs. Red string connected names and locations in a chilling web that looked almost like a war room. But the most shocking sight was at the center, a figure standing before a large monitor, calmly reviewing feeds from cameras around the city. Mia froze. The person turned, hooded and masked, revealing only sharp eyes that glinted in the dim light. It was not someone she had expected, not a known criminal, not a protester, not even a local agitator. It was someone from inside the system, someone who had access, knowledge, and a personal vendetta. If your jaw just dropped, hit that like button right now, and comment who you think this could be before I tell you. This reveal is insane. The confrontation was tense. Mia's voice cut through the silence. Stop. You've caused enough. It ends tonight. The figure laughed softly, almost amused. Detective Torres, you're finally here. I wondered how long it would take for you to notice the pattern. Alex wasn't random. The protests weren't random. Everything is connected, and everyone thinks it's chaos, but it's order, my kind of order. Mia stepped closer, her mind racing. Who are you? What do you want? Justice, the figure said calmly. But not the kind you understand. I'm cleaning up the city, and those who stand in my way, they pay the price. The tension in the room was electric. Mia's eyes scanned the monitors. She noticed a live feed of another location, another protest site. And there, she saw the signs of Phase 2, barricades being moved, people being funneled into vulnerable areas, all meticulously planned. The killer had an army, not of people, but of information, surveillance, and manipulation. Comment below if you can believe someone planned this meticulously and hit subscribe, because what happens next is the final twist you didn't see coming. Mia lunged, trying to grab the figure, but they moved with calculated precision, evading her grasp. A struggle ensued, flashes of adrenaline, shouts echoing off the walls, objects crashing to the ground. Finally, Mia managed to pin the figure to the floor, ripping off the mask. It was someone everyone trusted, a high-ranking city official, someone who had access to protests, law enforcement data, and surveillance feeds. The betrayal stung as much as the revelation. Alex had died not because of random violence, but because the city itself had been weaponized by someone from within. The official's calm demeanor never wavered. You think stopping me here changes anything? Phase 2 is already in motion. By the time you report me, the city will be fractured beyond repair. Mia's mind raced. She remembered the USB drive, the photos, the list of names. This person had been planning for months, anticipating every move, and using the protests as a cover. The city was a chessboard, and she had just realized she was playing against the king. If your heart is racing, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and comment below. Could you survive being manipulated like this? This is the final shocking twist. But Mia didn't panic. She had her team on standby outside. With a precise call, she coordinated their entry. Within minutes, the building was surrounded. The officials' calm cracked as backup arrived, realizing the trap had turned against them. What now? The officials spat, cornered, anger flashing across their face. Now, Mia said, steady, determined, you face justice. And the city gets a chance to heal. The official was taken into custody, but the fallout had only just begun. Investigators would spend months untangling the network, analyzing surveillance data, and uncovering the scope of Phase 2. Families, friends, and the entire community were left to process how close they had come to catastrophe. Even as the city began to recover, a haunting thought lingered. The official's last words echoed in Mia's mind. Phase 2 is already in motion. And she knew, deep down, that while this chapter had ended, the story of manipulation, control, and the fragility of trust in the city was far from over. The camera pans out over Minneapolis, the streets quiet, yet the tension lingering like a shadow. The murals of Alex Pretti remain, a symbol of both hope and tragedy. One life lost, one city shaken, but the truth revealed. And for Mia Torres, the case would never truly end. The screen fades to black.